time is 27 minutes to 8. It's Conversations on Energy FM 102.1 and Choice FM 101.1. And on the art review, we appreciate wordsmith as well as intellects, and we are welcoming to reviewing their works. And I'm joined now in studio by Thabang Tlaka, and he has authored various books, 4 in particular, and their titles. I have them in hand. I'm quite excited. I love books. The first one is titled Selfie of the Soul. The second one is titled The Taxi Philosopher. The third one is titled Corrupting Virgins. And the last one is titled Focus and Flourish, in no particular order. And you're more than welcome to join in this review throughout by sending us a WhatsApp message to 079-295-1212, and you can also call us on 015-151-0135. Thabang Tlaka, good evening and welcome to Conversations.
Yes, good evening, how are you?
I am well, thank you. How are you?
I'm alright, alright.
So you've written 4 books.
Yeah, I've written 4 books.
Let's get to know you a bit better, maybe before we even get to the books. Who's Thabang Tlaka?
Thabang Tlaka is a happy guy who's born in Limpopo. I actually went to school in Flora Park Comprehensive High.
Alright.
I studied at the University of Pretoria. I studied psychology, write books, write plays. I own a practice. I'm a poet. I'm a dad, and I'm somebody's husband.
That's good to know. So you've written 4 books.
Yes.
Where does the love for writing start from? You know, they say readers are writers. Are you a reader?
Yes, I love reading. In fact, if I could spend my time doing anything, reading would be it. I always try to get through as much material as I can. But I've always been a curious person, so I'm always thinking about stuff. And if you think about stuff, writing then becomes a follow-up because you want to just organize your thoughts.
What kind of books have you read so far? The kinds that you would say somewhat intrigued the writer in you, because you know there's certain people who choose to write and just admire, and there's certain people who choose to read and just take it and leave it at that. But you chose to read and write. But who inspired you?
So my intellectual father would be somebody like a C.S. Lewis, the guy who wrote Narnia. I like his kind of writing. But I think writing for me, it's just something that came naturally. It's how I just used to process emotions. So I just wrote, then I just wrote across different platforms. I used to write poetry before in school, then that graduated into a book, then it graduated into stage productions, and that, so it went on and on just like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
We get to know Thabang Tlaka, the author of 4 books, and his work a lot better tonight on the art review. And should you have any questions or comments, you can send them throughout by sending a WhatsApp message to 079-295-1212, and you can also call us on 015-151-0135. Which book is your first here?
Okay, so I wrote the Taxi Philosopher. That was my first book. Actually, I used to ride in taxis, and I hated how the taxi drivers used to treat us. And so I used to kind of pen the things that they used to do. I wanted to report them. And then kind of morphed into a book because I heard that Freud used to analyze Shakespeare. I used to analyze characters, and that's how he came to hone his psychological skills. So I thought, let me study people in the taxi. So that's what I did. That was my first book. The next book was called Corrupting Virgins. One day I was sitting in a practice, a young girl came in, and she was being bullied at school because she wasn't very experienced with boys. And so, so that inspired inspired me to write a book about girls who are being bullied because they choose a certain path in life. The third book I wrote is The Selfie of the Soul. I said I'm a poet, so I just collated all my poetry into one book. And then the last book that you have there is called Focus and Flourish, because we live in an age where people are distracted, people are hustling. They're hustling, they're doing this and that and that and that, which is actually multitasking is a myth. If you study cognitive psychology, and people who focus are much more effective at what they do versus people who try to do 1,000 things.
So you see, with book titles, a lot of authors tend to be very poetic, and you find that oftentimes the title does not necessarily give away what's inside the book.
Yes.
What's your approach when it comes to titles?
It's suppose what moves me. So before, I mean, the taxi philosopher, it's about that, about somebody who drives in taxis and philosophizes. Corrupting Virgins, it was about the theme, virginity, and what's happening in the country, corrupting and sugar daddies and those kind of ideas. Those themes were prominent, that's why I used that title. Selfie of the Soul is also timely because I wrote it at the time when people are taking selfies. And then, so my question was, but if yes, we like being shallow, but if we're to go deep, who would you be, or who are you when nobody's looking? Focus and Flourish is also relevant to the time because a lot of people struggle to focus. They can't finish conversations, they can't finish even reading a book. People start and don't finish. Hence the subtitle is Start, Finish, and Have the Power.
So I want to believe that all of these books are your babies, and I'm going to put you in a very tight, difficult position. But which one is your favorite?
I don't know. I mean, I wrote them for different audiences. In fact, if you read the books, they are very different. Right now, I'm enjoying Focus and Flourish because it's my latest book. But all of them, I mean, because they are different, I can't really. It's like children. Do you have a favorite? They all have their own something unique about them. Taxi Philosophy is very deep. Most people, in fact, when they read it, and if they've met me, they say, "Did you write this book?" Because I wrote it. If you want to go very deep and philosophical, that's the kind of book. If you read Corrupting Virgins, it's very it's fictional. I mean, there are witches in there. There are all sorts of interesting things that go in there. And then the Selfie of the Soul, like I said, I love poetry. That's very poetic. And Focus and Flourish, I do corporate engagements. I go and speak to people, and then it's more business motivational. So they're actually quite different. And I try to write different books. I try to write timeless pieces. I want 50 years from now when people read the books to still feel that this guy had something.
So you speak about present day generation wherein people start and they don't finish, and amongst the many other things that they do is some of them say they don't have time for physical books, some of them prefer audiobooks and so forth. So I want us to spoil our listeners, and I'm going to ask that you read the first paragraph of journal entry 10, that's for the taxi philosopher, just the first paragraph, just so they hear you read the book.
What is this? Before I leave. Oh, it's about a dad who's about to die and he's leaving instructions for his daughter.
Okay.
There is a darkness that looms large in the peripheral areas of our soul. It's such a curious thing that as time slowly slithers away, a great sense of clarity comes upon me. I'm an old man now, and the cancer in my body is advancing swiftly, devouring any hopes of me any further days with you. It's not the expensive and strangely numerous things that I miss most. It's not the cars or houses I've built that make me proud, but it's you, my child. Matapelo, I'm not a perfect man, and I know I have failed you many times. Forgive me, child. I wish I had more time with you. I can buy anything I want, and thus have no need for material things. I simply desire more time. I can't purchase that. Perhaps it's a joke that God plays on us mere men.
We're getting to know Thabang Tlaka, an author of 4 books, and his work a lot better tonight on the Art Review. Should you have any questions or comments, send them our way. Our WhatsApp line is 079-295-1212, and you can also call us on 015-151-0135. When you look at the literary work, especially in the province and present day, what do you make of it? For instance, I'm an avid reader, and I keep thinking it worries me that I have to read so much content that's from Johannesburg, that's from the Eastern Cape, and so less from my very province. It could be just maybe that I'm not tapping into the right places, but what do you make of the literary sphere in Limpopo in present day?
In fact, it's interesting that you asked the question because as I was planning to come here, I'm doing a book event this weekend. So I was trying to actually contact people who are running book clubs here, the library, and I see there are little pockets where people are trying to get the reading going. People such as, I think there's a Timbuktu book club, I just heard of them. I think I saw there's Polokwane Literary Society. They did a project last year in September, and I know that I've done some work with the National Library of South Africa, and I know that at the library gardens, because I'd spoken with them recently, they are trying to have events where they can get authors, and it can be better. There are things that are happening, but I don't think there's enough collaboration. I think more can be done. I think it can be bigger, it can be better. I think young children can be involved. But the other thing I pick up is that people are, how frank can I be? So I'm a psychologist, I like being very direct. I think sometimes people are also very clingy and to some degree selfish with the spaces they own. They struggle to share platforms. I don't know. People think if they share what they have, they'll somehow lose it. So I see a bit of that as well.
We are in conversation with Thabang, Tlaka, and author of 4 books tonight on the Art Review. Should you have any questions or comments, send them through to our WhatsApp line 079-295-1212, and you can also call us on 015-151-0135. After the break, we talk about the challenges of publishing. So, Thabang, we interact with so many aspiring authors on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, the biggest challenge that we keep talking about is the issue of publishing.
Yeah.
So they will tell you, publishing places are not warming up to our work, and I'm trying self-publishing, funding is a problem, and in end, is that the issue that you somewhat encountered before you published your first book?
Definitely. So I remember the first time I had my manuscript and I wanted to publish it. I spoke with one of the big publishing houses, and they said to me, listen, so you've got this book, but we want to shape it in a certain way. So there's a way that they work. And the interesting thing was, so it's not necessarily your book, so we'll take the book and then it's our book and then you get some sort of royalties. I didn't like that idea per se, because I'll just get a cut of everything they will do. So they'll edit the book, they'll take responsibility for the book. And so I found that it was a little bit difficult getting books in shops, getting people to just take your story. I struggled with that. And then I just decided to self-fund. Until I even registered my own publishing company. And I think it's just the story of the world right now, that people have to do their own thing. I think if you're going to wait for someone else to like your story or to discover you, I think you're going to have a big problem. I think we are in such a time where people can produce their own content, and publishers run a business. They have to think, I'm going to take your book, but will it sell? But if people don't have a taste, an acquired taste for the stories, the new stories that you want to tell, then it's a risk, So I think some people are lucky enough to be published. In South Africa, they say about 5% of the people read after grade 12. So it's a very niche market, and certain books sell. So books, religious books sell, motivational books sell. If you're going fictional, then you have to be doing things like Harry Potter. The international authors do that. So publishing is a big problem, but I think we have to then do it ourselves. If we don't, then nobody's going to discover you. Nobody's going to fund you if you're not willing to fund yourself. And if your family and friends are not willing to help you or fund your projects, then why should other people also bother with you?
And I guess you raised quite an important point to say that maybe sometimes one must take matters into their own hands, because sometimes you're going to go to a publishing house in Johannesburg,
yes,
and you want to tell them about a story of a herd boy. They can't exactly really warm up to that if it's not a reality that they know. So there's certain things that go into that. But there's a question here from Tato, who's extremely loud from 10%. Tato says, hi family, how does one ensure a sustained financial life through just writing?
In fact, there's they say that, if you're a South African writer and you sell 1,000 books, you've done very well. So 1,000 books, that's not necessarily quite a lot. So so it's quite difficult in South Africa to sustain yourself in terms of writing books unless you make it very big. The other way to do it is if you write an amazing book and some publisher takes it, and then you travel the world, they help you. The second way to do it is to actually write your book and then take it on the road. and own your material, because then when you sell the thing, then the proceeds come to you directly. So if I would recommend to somebody, I'd say, if you want to go into book writing, first of all, don't go in there thinking I'm writing to make money off a book. If you go for that intention, then you're going for the wrong reasons. But I think once you are able to write your book, but you have to then put on your marketing hat, you'd have to learn the business, and then you have to just then go and just share your ideas that people can then learn to create a following, and people can enjoy your books. I think that's some other way you can do, or what you can do rather, to make it more lucrative.
And one other question, how does one know that it is necessary to write to a specific market? How does he know that it will be as welcomed as anticipated?
Well, they are. How do you tell that? I mean, there are books that people thought they wouldn't sell well, but they are, let's say, national conversations. There are themes that trend. There are things that I'm curious about. So when I started writing, I used to write books for myself, but so you can do that's all right. But the other way to make sure that your book will be picked up is when you start writing your book, start talking to people about it. Say, I'm working on such and such a book, would you read it? And then people will give you feedback like, yeah, I would read that book, or I wouldn't read that book, or they give you other ideas. So start talking about your book, research about your book, write a book that answers people's problems, or a book that people would find helpful to go through. So if you write a book like that, then you've got some sort of certainty that people might be interested in looking at your book.
And I see another comment here. It says, hey family, is it okay to have a feel of different kinds of reads, or stick with one kind as per your interests, personality, and or what you connect to?
Not necessarily. So I think that in fact that question it's quite nuanced. So on one level, it's for you to finish a book. It's good that you find books that you enjoy and you complete reading, but it's something else, when you find things that also stretch your mind, so that you're not a person who is limited in their thinking. It helps to read across themes so that you are well versed. So I think you can have a core of the stuff that you read, but now and then dabble in different things. So I would think, find what you love, but don't be intimidated by other genres, other styles, because it will just broaden your thinking and your horizons, and that's what you want. You want to be somebody who can think out of the box.
So without necessarily coming across as though we are imposing or limiting people.
Yeah.
So there's a certain trend wherein you read a book that's been written by your Eusebius McKaiser and the likes.
Yeah.
They write about their lives, and you think, maybe I can write about my life, and people will warm up to that.
Yeah.
When would you say is the right time for one to determine that they can write about their life and people will actually warm up to that?
As a psychologist, this is a funny thing. People are so interesting. The reason why we can connect with some other person's book is that they were authentic with their story. So I think if you were to write a story about your life, and you were really, really, really honest, and you were frank, and you've done the inner work where you searched yourself, I think then that book that people might enjoy, because you are being and your story doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. So I think you'd be ready when you've done the emotional work and you are ready to be honest. But if you are going to cut and paste and not be honest and just write, then I don't think then you should write a book about yourself. But if you're a kind of person, if you're willing to be brave and honest and adventurous, I think then you could write a story about yourself. We need more stories. We need more people to write books. We need lots and lots and lots of books. From people die with their stories, and it's quite a shame.
What mistakes do you think first-time authors make?
They think they're going to make a lot of money. They think that their friends and their family might support them. They think that it's an easy process, and you're just going to write something that's going to have a life of its own. But there are different phases towards writing a book. There's the, when you plan your book and you write your book, then there's a time after that where you have to market the book and sell the book, and books have a lifespan. And so if you're not aware of what you might expect, I think then you might be very disappointed. You find you write a book and there are all these copies sitting at home, and you are very sad, or nobody's actually maybe looking at your book. So be very open-minded, do your research, but write that book. You never know what could happen with your book.
I want to ask you to, because you can't just write 4 books and we'll have you read from one book, right? I want to ask you to read from Something Came Up, that's a chapter that's in your book, your latest book, that is Focus and Flourish, Start, Finish, and Have the Power. You can just read the first paragraph for us.
Okay, yeah, so it's a section about disappointment, that you just because you're disappointed doesn't mean you should stop your goals. Don't be distracted by disappointment. Okay. In a world of post-truths, excellent marketing, and shifting post-goals, those who stand on principles will achieve much. The ability to weather the storms of regular occurrences, such as disappointments, illness, and loss, prepares one to win in the game of life. The world, though many doubters would disagree, is built on principles. Where I stand, I have come to learn that there are inescapable distractions and impartial regularities that cause us to deviate from our plans. Seasons will come and go, leaders will rise and fall, movements will come and go, but rest assured that something will always come up. The heart and mind that understands this is better prepared for the various circumstances of life. The mind that is ready to deal with sudden and unexpected changes will survive a world that is constantly changing. They that build their lives on principles, truth, and understanding will be able to focus and flourish even under pressure.
Quite fitting, especially if you look at how things are done of late.
Yes.
How are people finding your books?
Like I said, so people say thank you for writing the book. Thank you, I never looked at it that way. Thank you because this connects with me. I think people describe me as somebody insightful. They say that I help them see something that they didn't see before. So I think that's the general feedback that I get, that just thank you for writing the book, thank you for showing. I never thought of it this way. Your books have comforted me. I was going through a difficult time, and this book helped me go through this difficult time.
So some people are not reading their Thabang because they're saying books are expensive. What would you like to say?
I mean, you can get free books like now on the internet. If you not read, this world depends on how much you know and how much you apply. If you don't read, you're going to become somebody's slave.
Okay. So you have plans, and you spoke about how it's important that once one has worked on a craft, they must take it to the streets so that people know about it. And you're doing just that on Saturday. Tell us a bit about that.
Yes, so on Saturday at between 12 and 2, I have a book signing. It's in Skuman Street at actually my brother's photography studio. I'll be sharing some ideas from the book. I'll be doing some poetry, and I'll be talking about some other exciting things. So I'll be coming from Pretoria to Polokwane to share ideas from Focus and Flourish, and we're going to have a very, very nice time.
And I'm guessing should aspiring authors come there, you will spare them some time and just talk about them?
Definitely, we're going to spend some time, we're going to take some photos, we're going to shake some hands, we'll share some knowledge, and so I'm excited for people who come, because I just like encouraging people.
Okay. How can people get in touch with you if they would like to get the books and so forth?
Okay, so I'm on Facebook. I've got a Facebook page, Tlaka, Clinical Psychologist. I'm on Instagram, Tlaka. I'm on Twitter, Tlaka. I've got a website, www.tabantlaka.co.za, and I've got an office line in Pretoria. That's 012-323-5926, 012-323-5926.
Is it too soon to call you a literary giant?
Nah, no, it's very, very, very soon. Very, very soon. I think generation. I think I'm writing for future generations.
We're going to leave with that. Thabang, Tlaka, and all the 4 books. All the best with your future endeavors, and hopefully we can come and entertain us. Support you.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity.